All right, beautiful people, man. Thanks so much for joining us here today. New Black Wall Street Book Club. We are going to be continuing our journey into the book Swords and Tales of the Immortals Origins, Swords and Scales. Oh, my background is all messed up. Give me just a second, guys. 1 second here. Oh Lord, all my stuff ain't hanging up like it's supposed to be. Okay, there we go. There we go. Yeah. All right. Well, oh, okay. Can't be coming in all incorrect, man. So Sword and Scales, Tales of Mortals Origins, book by the Day Brothers. We're going to be jumping into the third short story. Again, this is the book here. I'm going to put up the link where you guys can find it if you want to support some Black authors. Swordsandscales.com. And we're getting into Akhi Zurai, the Hunter, today. So I'm excited to learn about this brother and his a little bit about him, his background, and things like that. You guys know what time it is, man. Mr. DJ hits the music.
New Black Wall Street Book Club. Evan Jefferson, brother, much love. Educating, elevating, because in knowledge is the power and we'll never give it up. Literature is for the masses. Where to put your money down, now how to watch your assets. Yeah, uplifting others is a passion. My brother Evan, he will turn it into action. New Black Wall Street Book Club. You should come read with us.
Mr. Henry.
We comprehend and discuss. Yeah, we all just come together. There's no limit for us. Here comes your host, New Black Wall Street. Evan, take it away. New Black Wall Street Book Club. New Black Wall Street Book Club.
All right, beautiful people, man. So just so you know, man, New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read, you put it in the book and we absolutely will find it. The whole purpose of the show is to highlight Black authors who bring great literature that help feed our soul. If you do have a Black author that you know of that needs some exposure, because we do need to support our authors as well for our own literature. I do focus particularly on finance, business, and personal development. So if they've written something in that realm some kind of way, and you think this would be a good space for them to have their literature heard while we support them, to make sure you have them reach out to us on ERGJ Enterprises on Facebook and or Instagram or YouTube. We are broadcasting on those platforms from our virtual studios here in Decatur, Georgia. Love to know where you're connected from, what city, what state, what country, what city, what state, what country you might be connected from this morning, as we're going to hop into a book written by the Day Brothers. We're into our third short story. Now, we're not going to complete the book, right? We'll read a few of these up through Friday, and there'll be some that's left out. That's to entice you to go get the book and to support them, as I'm pretty sure this book has a little bit more of a mission behind it as well. And this is just the origins. And when I think about it, as I've been reading through it, it reminds me of I think X-Men, like the origins of X-Men or something like that. I get a feel for like maybe a Black Panther or Wakanda or Black Panther type of thing. It's going to be like a series. So I'm really excited about it. It's got some words I got to look up. It helps expand my vocabulary. And although it's a comic book, it's really, that's something that kids can enjoy from the visuals. That's something that parents can enjoy or adults can enjoy from the vocabulary. So really, really looking forward to this. What's up with you, man? Queen Vivian's in the house. Thanks so much for joining us here today. Mr. Henry, man, we got him Henry sighting. Hadn't seen you. Has been a long time, man. All is well, man. We'll continue to chug along. Thanks so much for joining us here today. New Black Wall Street Book Club. Queen Yvette is in the house. Thanks so much for joining us, man. So we're going to learn about the origin of the hunter, whose name is Akhi Zurai. Akhi Zurai. And I believe next Monday, we're going to actually have one of the authors on with us to talk to us about this journey into this, this literature. And what I really like about people, man, at the end of the day, is someone had an idea and they push forward to the completion, which we have now a book, which is the completion of that idea. And hopefully that encourages you in 2021 to complete these ideas that you have that can bring value to the marketplace, but then also bring some money into your storehouse. You got to execute, you got to complete, you got to finish what you thought about. Everybody put in the comments, so finish what you thought about. So we do have Again, Black authors who I respect. I'm an author myself, and we're going to get right into this thing, man. New Black Wall Street Book Club. Y'all know what time it is. Let's read. So Akhi Zurai, the Hunter. Let's find out about him here in today's installment of the New Black Wall Street Book Club. There's no land more obscure than the untamed wilds of the southeastern wilderness. Covered in vast, unmeasured plains that stretch as far as the eye can see, it is home to unimaginable beasts and animals. Hidden waterfalls and dense jungles lay within the interior of the continent. This is the third realm, the fabled forgotten world. Forgotten because there's little to no recorded history that has survived, and the oral accounts are steeped in mythical lore and tales that stretch the imagination. There are only two types of people that exist here: those that live in the constant fear and those that constantly overcome and stare fear in the face. Which one are you? There are only two types of people that exist here: those that live in constant fear and those that constantly overcome and stare fear in the face. For that reason, it is the least populated of all the realms by humans. The earliest people here learned to subsist by becoming hunters and gatherers. Over time, they have evolved to become the bravest and most skilled hunters in all the realms. It is from among these legendary people that Akhi Zurai comes forth. His name is spoken with the utmost of respect, for he is considered to be the best of the plains hunters. The story goes that his entire tribe was killed by a pack of razor cats when he was only a young boy. The only ones who survived the attack were him and his grandfather, Arkusirai. It was from his grandfather, Akizu, learned the secrets of the hunt. Arkusi once told his grandson that in order to hunt the wildest creatures, he must arouse the nature of the beast within and subdue it. He learned the tracks and migratory patterns of over 300 animals. He could recognize the song calls of all the birds in the forest and could imitate dozens of these calls. By eating only a scoopful of mud from the fertile riverbank for 3 months, Akizu was able to develop a sense of smell as keen as the thunder bear. By the time Akizu had reached adulthood, he had survived the most harrowing trails. The highest heights should not discourage a true plains warrior, so he climbed the tallest trees and learned to walk the old canopy ropes left behind by his ancestors. Darkness and skulls should not worry the intrepid hunter's heart, so he had to sleep in the open plain with no food, clothing, or shelter for 2 weeks. Pain could never deter the master huntsman from the surety of victory, so he learned to suffer the terrible sting of the plantain wasp in order to retrieve the healing amber sap within its nest. Hesitation will bring death, so Akizu learned to strike first when he encountered roving bands of maroon bandits. The maroon bandits were gangs of scoundrels that survived by pillaging, murdering, and stealing from villages of honest plains people who worked to survive. Akizu despised these low-life bandits and regarded them as cowards who could never endure life's hardships without taking from others who were weaker than they. His name and reputation among these bands caused fear and hatred. The bandit leaders placed bounties on his head and promised great rewards for anyone that brought his head. But only a few of these men who had ever seen Akizu lived to tell it. These and countless other trials and lessons from formed Akizu into a cold killer. He and his grandfather had survived by migrating from place to place in search of game prey. Often they would lend their tracking capabilities and services to organized hunting parties in exchange for gold and silver bullion, which they could trade for goods among the coastal cities. The majority of the people of the Third Realm lived along the coastline where trading centers emerged. Hides, pelts, and all manner of exotic wares were brought from the interior to the coast to be traded and bartered amongst local merchants and foreign seafarers. The coastal cities were dangerous, though, with the exception of the Bang Karan, the capital of the Third Realm. From this coastal capital city, a loose order was maintained by the strongest and wealthiest family of hunters and traders. The city itself was comprised of old stone buildings from a previous civilization, many of which were in ruins. But these stone buildings could withstand the frequent storms brought to shore by the tempestuous sea. The ruling family, called the Basts, were themselves former marauders and bandits, but they forbade any stealing or killing within the city borders. They controlled the trade of ivory and gold and possessed the best boats in the land. Merchant towns and cities, by comparison, were often nothing more than tent cities with occasional wood pagoda-type buildings that gang captains used as their strongholds. The women of the coastal cities were exotically beautiful, but equally cunning. No man dared to cross a daughter of the coast, for she was trained in the methods of subtle attacks, many of which were most agonizing. When his grandfather Arkusi died, Akizu buried him according to custom. He set fire to the last of the shelters of his old village and set out to roam the open plain. With no family or kin to call his own, Akizu marked himself as the last of his tribe, the last great warrior hunter. The pain of loneliness barely affected his soul, as he was trained and solitary by nature. By the memory of his family being attacked and killed by wild razor cats burning inside of him caused great anger, he made it his mission to track and exterminate as many of these large vicious cats as he could. He would also delight in eliminating any maroon bandits that came across along the way. For many years, Akizu tracked across the land, killing razor cats and other wild predators, but he knew it was impossible to kill them all. Satisfied with having learned all the habits and patterns of the razor cat, he set his sights on gaining even more knowledge of hunting. He decided to venture beyond the boundaries of even the farthest known hunting fields. Beyond these fields lay unknown lands inhabited by unknown and terrifying beasts that had existed since prehistoric epochs. Everybody put in the comments, so unknown. How many of you guys are willing to travel to go to traverse in the unknown? That's a hunter mentality, right? Hey, there was no existing knowledge of the tracks, patterns, or even physical descriptions of the creatures that roamed here. Equipped with his immense bow given to him by his grandfather and several daggers and cutlasses, he set out to chart the unknown lands. I want to tell you guys in 2021, some of you guys, it's time for you to set chart into some unknown territory. Here's a picture of Akizu. Let's see if we can get a good, let me move it over here. There we go. There we go. Akizu. The unknown. A few days' journey beyond the known hunting fields of Akizu saw smoke rising from beyond a set of rolling hills. He was amazed to find human settlement this far away from the coast, let alone from a hunter village. He thought to himself that these must be a fierce and brave people to venture this far. From the top of an adjacent hill, he saw a village comprised of many cabins constructed of wood. They were encircled by a fence made of wood beams with sharpened points, no doubt to keep out unwanted guests. He decided he would approach the village and inquire of their bravest warriors and learn the secrets of the wild. Upon his approach, he was met by two young men who were hurriedly carrying buckets of water back to the village. They were startled by the sight of Akizu, and one boy dropped his bucket of water. Akizu recognized the look of fear in their faces. He asked where they were from and why they were not carrying any weapons for hunting. They replied that there were no beasts in the vicinity save one, and no weapon in their possession could harm it. Akizu studied their faces for a moment and required them to tell him more about this beast. One of the young men exclaimed that perhaps this chance meeting with Akizu was the answer to his prayers. The other boy had managed not to spill his bucket, looked skeptically at Akizu, and said that no man could withstand the terrible and wretched black behemoth of death. With razor-sharp fangs and claws and a smell that caused men to vomit their bowels, the monster was unstoppable. Many had tried, many had died. Akizu returned with the boys to their village. Although the cabins were occupied, he noticed that most of the doors were fastened firmly shut, and it was still just past high noon. What kind of devilish beast could have people scared to come out in the daytime? He noticed there were a group of men working diligently to repair a section of the pole fence. They stopped briefly to look at Akizu and the boys, their faces drawn with fatigue and worry. Akizu was led into an indoor building where it seemed the majority of the town's important people had gathered in assembly. Akizu nearly sneezed from the fear that was in the air. He learned that a terrible monstrous beast had been routinely attacking the village from a nearby cavern lair. The townspeople continued with the description after description of how the behemoth had killed and destroyed many in the village and had made cultivation of the croplands nearly impossible. Their local wells had dried up, and for water, they had no venture to their old village, which explained why the boys with the water buckets. The beast had normally only attacked at night, but a few daytime attacks had thrown the people of the village into bewilderment and despair. The man who appeared to be the chief among them spoke to Akizu, recognizing him to be one of the hunters of old. He said that there were no mighty and brave men left among them. No one had the nerve nor skill to face the monster. They only worked to build better stronghold defenses against the behemoth. Akizu wondered why the people persisted in the village. Surely living in such a state of fear was worse than any imaginable death. Before the chief could say another word, Akizu told him that he would kill this beast and they would be able to once again farm in peace. He thought of his own village, and how at the time he was incapable of defending his family from the pack of razor cats. He set out at once towards the lair of the monster. The story of how Akizu tracked and ultimately slew the beast must be told in another scroll, for the tale is great. The strength, tenacity, and split-second accuracy of the great Akizu in the battle with this unknown monster must be recounted for ages to come. A ravine was dredged when the black behemoth was brought down, standing as testimony to the feat. However, this tale is for another time, so let the journey continue. The village people all rejoiced in near disbelief as their worst nightmare had finally come to an end. And there stood Akizu, stone-faced as ever, ready for the next challenge. The chief offered him the best of their accommodations and gold, even his daughter's hand in marriage, if he would only stay and abide with them as their new leader. But Akizu was not interested in settling down in a commoner's life. This was only the beginning of his journey into the unknown lands, and he must push on for greater adventure. The night before his departure, he sat around the fire with the remaining of the town's strong men. Akizu spoke of his own family and his pursuit of the razor cat and other similar stories. One of the men then began to talk of a legendary beast, a mythical cat-like creature that inhabited the bluegrass plains beyond the great waterfalls and jungles of no return. Some of the other men laughed as the story was told to them from childhood and mostly accepted it as fable. But the man continued that there was more to the myth than simple bedtime stories. He told of how an old merchant in the southern coastal trading town of Hagari once boasted of possessing the only blade that could penetrate the hide of this same mythical lion. Akizu listened intently. At the daybreak, he set out at once for the southern shores in search of the old merchant and the mystical blade. The southern coastal trading counts were smaller and less busy than the western shore towns. They appeared to be no sign of maroon bandit gangs either. No one turned their head as Akizu the Brave strode through the open air market, but they most assuredly did take notice of him, his presence and instinct filling the atmosphere. He walked straight up to an old man who was quietly smoking a pipe while seated on a bench in front of the tent of the wares. From a distance, the conversation being had between Akizu and the old man could not be heard, but the old man's face lit up in surprise before he went into his tent and came back out with a long box that was wrapped in a blue cloth. Akizu placed 3 large gold bullion on the table and slid them to the old man. The exchange caught the attention of a beautiful young woman who was applying henna tattoos to a customer at her tent of exotic fragrances and oils. Her eyes squinted slightly when the old man handed the wrapped box to the mysterious warrior. Her name was Allura Kai, and her large almond eyes had a hypnotic quality along with her symmetrical tattoos going down both of her shoulders and arms. The old man pointed in the direction and reached under his bench to hand Akizai a rolled up dusty map. Just as directly as Akizu had walked in, he strode back out of the market after a moment's conversation with the old man. Allura watched as she walked by pretending to be focused on her work applying a temporary tattoo. Akizu crossed the exit gate of the camp and wandered onto a trail leading into a lush forest without looking back. The young woman quickly paused in her work and lightly stepped to the camp gate to catch a glimpse of the direction the hunter had gone. When she returned to her tent, she told her customer that she had run out of ink and must travel to another market to obtain the ink to finish her tattoo. Meanwhile, the solitary journey Akizu ride was approaching a pinnacle. He pondered the myth of the great cat and looked for clues that indicated that his patterns of movement were like most of other large cats of prey. He traversed dense forests, enduring high humid heat before arriving at a river. The current of the river seemed to be increasing in speed as he walked downstream along the bank. Without hesitation, he hopped a ride onto a large log that was floating close to the shore. The river suddenly turned into rapids as the river and the forest fell suddenly away 300 feet in front of him. He had found the landmark waterfall that would soon be heading directly over its edge. At the last possible moment, he leapt from the log tree, falling with limbs outstretched for 100 feet before he grabbed a large hanging vine with his powerful hands. Swinging, he landed to safety on the riverbank from some 500 feet below the waterfall. Akizu looked back up at the staggering height and majesty of the waterfall. He gathered his weapons and sniffed the air for a moment before setting out again through the forest. The air was thin. The air around him was now much cooler and the forest was noticeably quiet as only a few colorful birds squawked when they saw him moving stealthily through the forest. Soon he came to the edge of the jungle and stood on a rocky cliff that overlooks a vast and majestic plain. The climb down the rocky slope was handled with moderate difficulty as he was now at the base of the plain level. The breeze blew cool, fresh air, fresher than he had ever inhaled. The sky was layered in orange and pink and purple and indigo colors as if the sun was setting. The place had an otherworldly feel, and it seemed as though the sun itself took a unique route to this hidden, mysterious land. Akizu boldly strode into the fields of waist-high grass. His neck hairs tingled as he had this distinct feeling as if he was being watched. There were no signs of any animal tracks or other indication he was near his prey, but he certainly felt close to something. He suddenly thought to retrieve the map the old man had given him. Unrolling it, he saw strange characters forming the word at the bottom, Tezman. Akizu had never learned to read, so he could not pronounce the word as it was written. Suddenly, the wind picked up and swept over the entire plain. The clouds above him swirled and threatened to pour upon him some of the otherworldly downpour. The voice whispered in the wind, Akizu. Akizu stopped and gripped his spear handle, which was tipped by the blade the old man had given him. The voice whispered again, his name again, Akizu. Akizu gritted his teeth and scanned the expanse of the plain for any movement. Suddenly, and seemingly out of nowhere, there appeared a gigantic being hovering in the sky some 150 feet ahead of him. It was accompanied by pearls of thunder and oranges-colored lightning. Akizu's adrenaline rushed at the sight of this supernatural being. The being floated and hovered in the sky. It had the body of a man, but the head of a great lion. Let me show you guys this picture. Something like that. I guess you guys can see it. Yeah, you guys can see it. Now look at that. How could he have known that this mythical prey he hunted was no animal at all, but a god? Akizu asked the giant who he was, and he received the answer, Tezman. The giant's voice hissed and rattled in a deep guttural tone that vibrated down through Akizu's bones. The giant lion-headed being told Akizu who he was and asked Akizu why he hunted and killed all of the big cats. Akizu replied that his family was killed by wildcats. Tezman warned and instructed Akizu to leave at once and return to his home. But Akizu had never retreated from a hunt, and he wasn't going to start now. He readied his attack, but before he could launch, Tezman summoned high-intensity plasma-like energy into his hands and shot a devastating laser-like beams from his hands at Akizu. He dodged the explosive giant rays by leaping into a dive roll to the right. The ensuing battle was the making of an epic legend. The legend of a man whose bravery and skill had brought him face to face with a god whom he battled with great bravery and skill. But alas, it was never meant for Akizu to defeat this otherworldly being. Only in the climax of the battle did Akizu get knocked unconscious. What happened between the coma-inducing blow and when he awoke in the field was unknown, and save for a single witness, the story would have never been told. The legend of Akizu, the hunter, had ended here, and the tale of Akizu Rai, the immortal, had just begun. For it was due to his bravery and skill that the Great Spirit had conferred unto him the undying life force, new abilities, and newfound access into the realm of the Immortals. One must stay tuned to the unfolding of Swords and Scales, Tales of the Immortals, in order to find out what happens next. The tale of Akizu the Hunter, as he is, being transformed from human, hunter, brave warrior to immortal god, in a sense. Again, this is a book from Swords and Scales, a book called Tales of the Immortals Origin. You can find this book. You can pick it up for yourself, for your family, as a friend, all that good stuff, by simply going to the website www.swordsandscales.com, www.swordsandscales.com. And that was the tale of Akizu Rai, the hunter, the origin, how he came to be who he is. Again, this is the book, guys. Black author book, comic book, hardback here, not just paperback. Again, I think it's a great read. We're really reading about virtues. That's really what we're reading about. And this looks to be more about bravery, maybe courage, strength, something like that. And we'll pick up tomorrow, with let's see who we're gonna read about tomorrow. A queen. We're gonna read about a queen tomorrow. Queen Amaroka. Okay, we're gonna read about a queen tomorrow. So look forward to that here tomorrow. Go ahead and support your Black authors. Again, if you are an individual who is an author, or you know of an author, and they may need some exposure for their book or their literature, make sure you have them inbox us over at ERGJ Enterprise on Facebook and or Instagram. And this is the New Black Wall Street Book Club, and I'm your host, ER. What's going on, Cheryl? How you doing? Jennifer is in the house. Thanks so much for joining. That's right, man. What's up, Mr. Sedley? I was a scary looking creature. Absolutely. It's New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read. You put in the book, we absolutely will find it. I'm your host, ERGJ, CEO of ERGJ Enterprises and the Black Bazaar. I want you guys to remember this. That it takes a village. It starts with us. Let's build as we climb together. We all we got, beautiful people. Matter of fact, we all we need. Thank God, that's more than enough. Until next episode, you know what time it is. Mr. DJ, hit the music.
It's the New Black Wall Street Book Club. New Black Wall Street. With your host, Evan Jefferson. It's time for us to go. Yeah. Now, you ain't got to leave the computer, but we encourage you to get out there and learn and apply all the things you learn at the New Black Wall Street Book Club. Yeah. The New Black Wall Street. The New Black Wall Street Book Club.